Hello, it is Getting Bills back at it again with another DFS video. This week we are talking about DraftKings and FanDuel plays for week 2 DFS. As you can see, this is my Twitter right here. You can follow me on Twitter over at Getting Bills, and shout outs to Pub Sports Radio. If you need a bookie, go to mybookie.ag and use promo code Pub Sports Radio. Let's head right into this slate. I don't want to bullshit you because this might be a longer video than usual. First thing that I want to talk about is the game stacks for this weekend. A good game stack that everyone else is going to go to this week is the Atlanta-Dallas game. This is the game that you're going to get a lot of, I would say, just chalkier plays on the slate. Like we have Ezekiel Elliott, we have Julio, we have Calvin Ridley, Amari Cooper, Michael Gallup, CeeDee Lamb. Like this game just makes it perfect for game stacks. But if everyone's going to put in Ezekiel Elliott, a good way to pivot around that would be plugging in Dak Prescott, and then let's avoid Amari Cooper and pay up for another wide receiver. So you put in Gallup, CD, and then at tight end, I want to bring it back with Hayden Hurst. And even if you want to get even more freakier, you could put in Todd Gurley there at the running back position. And then let's just fill in the rest of this lineup and see how this game stack would look. Put Derrick Henry there. For this, we are going to put Todd Gurley in here, and then we're going to put in Jonathan Taylor. And now we got to find a cheap defense. My favorite cheap defense this week is the Miami Dolphins. And then you go back up here in the $6,500 range, and you can get a player like Juju Smith-Schuster, Robert Woods, Allen Robinson, DJ Moore, and you can either go with Amari Cooper and get all the Dallas wide receivers. This is the easiest game stack of the week, but going deeper into the slate a little bit more, digging into it, I kind of like the Baltimore-Houston game as a stackable game. There's a lot of value on the slate. You could plug in Lamar Jackson, put in with his pass catcher, Marquise Brown, Mark Andrews. If you're playing Lamar Jackson, I want to have one of Marquise Brown or Mark Andrews, maybe even both. And then you can bring it back with Will Fuller, or you can either bring it back with David Johnson, and then you have a game stack right there. That is a really nice game stack. That's going to be a low-owned game stack. And then the off-the-radar game stack that I want to get parts of this week is the Kansas City Los Angeles Chargers game. I feel like Tyrod is one of the best point per dollar plays this week at the quarterback position. You can get Clyde Edwards-Helaire because a lot of people aren't going to play him this week because a lot of the ownership is going to go to Ezekiel Elliott and Derrick Henry. But for this lineup, I'm going to plug in him. And then you can also, one of the best point per dollar wide receivers this week is also coming from the Chargers, which is Mike Williams at $4,200. That is where I feel like I'm going to save my money this week as the wide receiver position. I can go a little bit more in depth about the wide receiver position because where you're going to make your bread and butter on this slate is the under 5K range for wide receivers this week. It's absolutely loaded. DraftKings kind of screwed up the pricing this week for that. Darius Slayton here starts it off at 5,000. I feel like he's a better play on FanDuel, but we saw a Monday Night Football game. Darius Slayton was targeted 9 times, caught 6 passes for 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. He had a monster game. He looks to be Daniel Jones's leading receiver. And then we go down a little bit. I feel like a lot of people are going to go to Preston Williams because Devontae Parker is potentially going to miss this game, but I kind of want to avoid him a little bit and go down to, I'm trying to find where he's at. He's even cheaper than I originally thought he was. Deontay Johnson at $4,500, I feel like is going to be the cash game play for a cheap wide receiver. He practiced him fully Thursday. He missed a little bit of practice this week, but I didn't really look into that too much because of the Monday Night Football game. You kind of expect that a little bit from a player like Deontay Johnson, and he at $4,500 is just too cheap on this slate. And then also going down a little bit to get different in this Indianapolis Colts game, because I feel like Jonathan Taylor is probably going to be the chalkiest running back on the slate. Paris Campbell, he kind of out targeted T.Y. Hilton. Why don't expect that to happen again? I feel like the Minnesota Vikings cornerbacks are absolutely trash. So I would definitely be targeting Paris Campbell this week at $4,500. And then also one of the best point per dollar quarterbacks this week is Kyler Murray at $6,100. I feel like he's going to be in everybody's cash game lineup. A good pairing with him could be Christian Kirk. While though he only had one reception last week, I feel like this is the perfect buy low spot for Christian Kirk at $4,300 and a perfect game spot against the Redskins, who I would say the Washington football team is going to get, I'm going to get used to saying that. I feel like they overachieved week one. It was just a good spot for them. And I feel like they'll revert back to normal here in week two. And then Mike Williams at $4,200 is also way too cheap. He had 4 targets for 9 receptions, and I expect the Chargers to be trailing a lot in this game. So that's the reason why I feel like that could be an off the radar type of stack for this weekend. And then another thing to highlight this week is the value that we have at tight end is absolutely outrageous. We're going to start off with, I'm just going to type in his name. Logan Thomas, revenge game. You got the revenge game narrative. You have the Arizona Cardinals tight end narrative, and Washington's pass catchers just suck. But he absolutely crushed week one. He was just running a lot of routes on dropbacks of Dwayne Haskins throws, and I feel like this is a perfect spot to target him again. But as the news came out later on in the week, I didn't really go over too much injury news, but the injury news that are really notable for this slate is players already ruled out is George Kittle, A.J. Brown, Kenny Galladay, Jameson Crowder, Phillip Lindsay, Jack Doyle, De'Arrington Evans, and Max Williams. With that injury news coming out last night that Jack Doyle was going to be out and Jameson Crowder is going to be out, that really highlights a player like Chris Herndon this week. He caught 6 passes on those 7 targets for 37 yards, which is kind of a lackluster type of day. But as you could see, the floor is kind of 8 fantasy points right there. And I feel like in this spot, he can get, I would say, deep down the field targets, which would be very helpful in this spot. I feel like Sam Darnold likes to target the middle of the field rather than the outside wide receivers. So Chris Herndon at $3,400 could definitely pay off big time. But I think I'm going to lock button in my boy Mo Alley Cox. He's expected to be the Colts' #1 tight end this week as they face off Minnesota, and he's at the bare minimum price, $3,000. I'm going to go on player profile, and I will show you his profile. And he's just an athletic freak. And this is a perfect game spot for him to definitely shine a little bit here. And at $3,000, I feel like he's going to gain a lot of ownership, but not enough ownership. But he's kind of like the free square in your lineup this week at $3,000. I'll zoom in a little bit right here to just look at, he's just an athletic freak at the tight end position. And I feel like he is going to be the key piece to this slate that you're going to really want on DraftKings to get in all the studs. The studs on the slate are pretty obvious. You got Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, and DeAndre Hopkins. Overall, I definitely like how this slate is really shaping out. You can kind of do a lot of things. For this video, I'm going to put out my cash game lineup. I'm going to put in Kyler Murray, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, Julio. Type in Deontay Johnson because I don't feel like scrolling that far. Where is he at? Deontay Johnson, Mike Williams, Mo Alley Cox, Funny name, right? Jonathan Taylor, and then we're gonna plug in the Cardinals defense, and then this gives you a very nice cash game type of build, and you can kind of take out Kyler Murray, plug in Dak Prescott, and then you can take out a chalky Ezekiel Elliott, and then put in Kenyon Drake, and then also you can stack the wide receivers for the Cowboys, like I talked about earlier, $4,700 for CD Lamb. With Blake Jarwin being out, you should definitely see an uptick for his targets this week. And Michael Gallup always poses big play upside. And that's why I really like how this slate's kind of shaping out this week, because you can do a lot of different things on this slate. And then let's shoot over to FanDuel, because FanDuel, man, this is the one lineup that I was building over there before this video started. I had Tyrod, Clyde, Derrick Henry, Mike Williams, Paris Campbell, Devontae Adams, Travis Kelce, Jonathan Taylor, and Arizona Cardinals. FanDuel this week, man, and last week, I feel like there's a lot of mispricing, and you can kind of pay up for anything that you want. So I will definitely be playing a lot on FanDuel this week. Like, I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about. You could play Lamar Jackson, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, Jonathan Taylor, Julio, Deontay Johnson again, CD is way too cheap on FanDuel this week at $5,200. Also, the note on FanDuel's below 6K is actually very interesting this week. You have CD Lamb there at $5,200. You also have Darius Slayton, like very, very cheap on this website too, $5,300. He pops a lot on FanDuel GPP lineups for me this week. But for this lineup, I'm not going to plug him in here. I'm going to put in Logan Thomas, because I talked about him at the tight end position. And this just shows the type of flexibility that you can do on FanDuel this week. You don't even have to pay for the bare minimum at tight end this week to really get in all the studs, because it's just free. It's just FanDuel is just jacking up their pricing, and it's just way too easy over here. You can kind of really play whatever you want. Like, I paid up for Lamar Jackson, Ezekiel Elliott, Derrick Henry, Julio Jones, and you can even go down a little bit at the defense position and switch out Julio for Devontae Adams, who will be one of the best plays on the slate again. But overall, those are my thoughts for this week, for week 2 daily fantasy for FanDuel and DraftKings. Make sure you check out Pub Sports Radio, and at the end, I'll go over everything. Those were my top game stacks: Atlanta versus Dallas, Baltimore versus Houston, and Kansas City versus the LA Chargers. My top studs of the slates were Derrick Henry, Ezekiel Elliott, Julio Jones, Devontae Adams, DeAndre Hopkins. And then my best under 6K plays were Jonathan Taylor, Kenyon Drake, Miles Sanders, and Melvin Gordon. And the best under 5K plays were Deontay Johnson, CD Lamb, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, and Darius Slayton. And my best point per dollar value tight ends were Mo Alley Cox, Chris Herndon, and Logan Thomas. Overall, those are all my thoughts for this week's slate. And I'll answer this question right here. Charlie says, start Scotty Miller, CD Lamb, Paris Campbell, or Watkins at the wide receiver 2 position this week. That's a very tough question. PPR league, 2 wide receivers, and an RB flex, and a tight end. I would rank that Paris Campbell first. Second for me would be CD Lamb. Third would be Watkins. Fourth would be Scotty Miller. That is all the time that I have for this video. Make sure you drop your start sit questions in the comment section of the video. And you can also follow me on Twitter at Getting Bills, and check out Pub Sports Radio later on today, because we will be going live for UFC from the prelims all the way to the main event. Let's go.